All right, team, we are back. This is part 2 of our chapter 10, stress. And we left off just talking about the different systems that are impacted, central nervous system, and then dipping into endocrine system, adrenal glands. So this part is going to talk more about just types of stressors, managing stress. This general adaptation syndrome is a framework that really tries to explain how the body perceives, processes, and adapts to stress so that we become more resilient to it and over time are better able to manage it. So this is just understanding how we manage stress and then giving some techniques to do it. So the general adaptation syndrome came about in the 30s and 40s. It's a pattern of the stress response and it moves through 3 stages. So that initial stage is called alarm. So the alarm stage is when that stressor, and remember the stressor is the actual event that happens. So the stressor is perceived, we go into this alarm state, and that's potentially that fight, flight, freeze state. But whatever it is, our body gets a little bit more aware and alert. And then in that moment, our resilience dips down. So if I go to this next, hang on, let me get onto the screen. We go to this next slide, you can see that red line across is kind of our normal resistance. And when that alarm reaction comes in, that dips below our normal resistance to it. And then over time, our body starts to become a little more adapted. We start to become a little more familiar. We've maybe dealt with this stressor before. So as we move and we have been exposed to that event longer over time, so that purple line is kind of our process. So we dip below and then we start to adapt. We come back up, maybe even above our normal resistance. So that stage of resistance is between the 2 dotted lines, where you're actually existing in a higher level. You've adapted to it. So you're becoming more resilient. You maybe got some skills and techniques, lessons learned, right? So, okay, like this is, not as stressful as maybe it once was, but then you can see where over time, if that stress remains chronic and we don't relieve it, we don't find ways to resolve it, we don't move away from it, remove ourselves from the situation, then we move into that stage of exhaustion. So similar to that other graph we saw where there's sort of that optimal level we can deal with, we're thriving, we're in this higher state of optimization performance levels until it becomes more chronic and then we leads to burnout, potentially exhaustion. So just note that first stage of alarm. And they also define eustress and distress. So sometimes stress can come from a pleasant stressor, right? We talked about like going on a date, like that's positive in many ways, but it can still evoke stress. Or getting married, doing a big presentation that you're excited about, being on a stage, being in a performance, being a competitive athlete. Like those are pleasant experiences that can potentially cause stress. That's eustress, a positive form of stress. And distress is an unpleasant situation, where you're having a conflict with someone, where you're breaking up with someone in a relationship, you're dealing with financial stress, you're moving to a new city that you don't really want to move to, your parents are moving, whatever the situation, that's where we might get into that fight, flight, freeze reaction. And then again, trying to deal with it and then avoid that exhaustion stage. Okay, so the general adaptation syndrome is just that 3-stage process of how we handle stress. So researchers have developed various instruments to measure how our brain, our skin conditions, our heart rate, what happens to our muscles, like that tension or tonality of our muscles when we're feeling stressed. Usually it's going to be a lot more taut. There's going to be tightness. Most of us hold it in our neck and shoulders, and you can even feel that sometimes. But that allows for experts to kind of study the immediate and long-term effects of stress. Allostatic load is a term that refers to that long-term negative impact. So it's like a great book, you guys, if you've not read The Body Keeps the Score. And that talks about potentially this allostatic load of the physical impacts and how our body kind of creates a summation of trauma or stress or negative events over time, and that load can put so much stress on our bodies, and it can impact our health and our longevity and all the things. So a person's allostatic load depends on a number of factors, but some of it could be genetics. We talked about personality and how different people just are more prone to be worrywarts or deal with stress in different ways. Life experiences, if you grew up in a household with abuse, or you grew up in a household but with really affectionate, supportive parents, or if you grew up with brothers and sisters that were kind of combative, where you kind of dealt with that growing up, and it was part of your upbringing to just learn to deal with conflict. So I think it just depends on, again, some life experiences, emotional, behavioral responses to stress. That all goes into your allostatic load, and a person's allostatic load can increase over time. So again, as you have different life events and you deal with different stressors and things start to pile up, then the load that's placed on your body and the amount of stress that you carry can increase. So stress can impact the immune system. That's just our body's ability to fight off bacteria and infections and the seasonal colds and allergies. Like, how resilient is your body against some of these antibodies and things that break down our body over time? And we talked about a lot of times as exam week comes, or things are, getting really heavy in the classroom and your workload and you're working, you kind of get a little run down. You're not fighting things off as well because the stress is breaking down that immune system. And some of the health problems linked to stress related changes, vulnerability to colds, other infections, asthma, allergy attacks, all of those flare-ups can be an indicator that you're under higher stress levels. Mood, personality, behavior, immune function, they're all just kind of interconnected. So just making sure you're taking care of your nutrition, getting your sleep, having some social interaction, getting outside for vitamin D levels, all the things we've kind of talked about in other chapters really come into play here. Other specific conditions, cardiovascular disease. So that's, heart disease. Of course, if you're high stress chronically, your blood pressure's elevated, your heart's working harder because it's beating faster. You're constantly in that higher level sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, mindset, and you never come out of that into those lower levels, the parasympathetic, then that can really add up over time and cause, heart issues, potentially panic and heart attacks. Other health problems that can be worsened by stress, digestion, tension headaches and migraines, sleep disruption, injuries, menstrual irregularities, just any kind of bedroom issues, impotence, pregnancy complications. Again, our body, if it's going to be having a baby, if it's going to go through that fertility process, it wants us to be calm. It wants us to be relaxed. It wants us to be able to manage that. And so if we are in constant stress, our body's so smart, it's going to say, no, it's not time for you right now. You need to find some homeostasis. You need to get some of these levels down so that we don't put the baby at risk. And so a lot of times as a female, your body's not going to allow you to go into that pregnancy state if you're not managing other types of stress well. Life changes. I mean, that's kind of an obvious one, right? Anytime we're going to a new situation, it's unfamiliar. We maybe don't know people. We're not sure if it's going to be the right fit. We don't know if we're going to like the job. We don't know if we're going to meet fun people and find our group. So that can be really hard, especially where you guys are right now. We're in like a whole new community, and you have a roommate maybe you don't know, and you're taking new classes that you haven't taken before. So this is exciting. I would call it eustress, right? I mean, it's stress, but it's positive, pleasant stress if you have that perspective of looking at it as just doors opening and opportunities and experiences that you can grow from, instead of looking at it as distress. Like, perspective is everything, right? So I think a lot of times stress is related to how we perceive the situation. And is it a challenge that we want to go into and we're excited about, or is it a threat? Challenge or threat? Daily hassles just can be a big source of stress. the more we can set ourselves up for success by being organized, by not procrastinating, by keeping our house clean, by going to the grocery store if we need to. Like getting yourself set up for success can take a lot of stress off. For many college students, it's being away from home for the first time. So, some of the main stressors for your population at your age is academic stress, just interpersonal relationship stress, time pressures, financial concerns. A lot of times when you're taking a full load, you can't work that much. You're trying to make some extra money, but it doesn't fit into the schedule always. And then kind of what's next for me, especially some of my seniors. Job related stress, this kind of ebbs and flows over the course of your life, but especially with new jobs or as you grow in your career and you get up higher into those more executive positions, then, am I performing? Am I going to be of value to the company? Do they see my value? Am I making the money I feel like I should make? And if I'm not, like, how can I get a raise, or how can I really show them what I'm worth and then keep my job secure? Tight schedules. So then, can you not work out as much, or you don't get time with your family or your loved ones or your person, and just making sure that you have that nice work-life balance. Relationship stress, in stressful circumstances, a lot of times our friends are our first source of support, because as we know, love relationships can come and go. We're all in with somebody, and next week, we're moving on to something else, or, it ebbs and flows. Timing is everything, but friends often stay the course of time, especially ones we've had in our childhood and are really deeply rooted and we continue to keep in touch with. So I think developing good relationships on a friendship level, and of course, intimate relationships can be amazing, and so they can be so empowering, and they can give so much to our lives and help us grow as people and grow in connection. But they can also be equally stressful on the flip side if it's not going well and you thought it was the person and now it's not the person. So I think just having a lot of different types of connections in your life, on the friend level, on the family level, on the intimacy level, so that if they start to fluctuate or things change or people move on, that you still have people around you. So I think it's just having diversity in your relationships is really important. Social networks, of course, now we have virtual social networks, but we want to keep real social networks too. I think now Facebook groups and, all of these other opportunities to connect virtually makes it so cool to see people across the country and connect with people at other schools and in other cultures. But we never can replace true human connection, in-person human connection. So I think it's really important that you try to have a nice cross section of all of those things, so that you're not replacing real connection with virtual connection. Environmental stress can be real. So, environmental stress is just external conditions, toxins in the air, pollution, things that can affect our daily life that we can't necessarily do anything about. Secondhand smoke was a big issue, more prevalent before, but still now, or if you're around people that still do that, or using nicotine or drugs or things like that, where that you could be affected by just the climate, the energy, the connection of people, and also internal stressors like the pressure that we put on ourselves, both to perform and physically put on ourselves, whether that's, training for something or trying to change our bodies, and just stressing our body and putting it in positions that maybe it can't thrive effectively. And that comes back to kind of the body composition and the nutrition and all the things. So managing stress, we're going to do some of this in class. So that's why I wanted to get through these PowerPoints a little bit so we could spend some time doing that. But things can be done, right? Developing healthy exercise habits. We all know that exercise can be stress. It's typically eustress. It is a pleasant form of stress, but it does put stress on our body, can bring down the immune system. It can leave us tired and run down. So we have to then, on the flip side of that, sleep and hydrate and eat right so that we can replenish. Strengthening your support system. So that's, again, expanding and building your social network so that you have multiple layers of support. Improving communication skills. And that leads to the social system, right? Support system. So being willing to talk to people and open up and take a chance and communicate and step out of your comfort zone a little bit. And sometimes, even though that's scary and might be stressful in the beginning, then you've got all of these other good, healthy connections around you. Identifying stressors, so being aware of what causes stress. Again, so you can be proactive with it. It's like, I know I get nervous during exam week, or I know when I'm about to go home and I got to go to the airport and get on a plane, I get a little bit anxious. Like, what are some things? Can I have a playlist? Can I have a book? Can I have some comfort, my pillow, or whatever I need to just create a little bit of relaxation or familiarity in those situations, and then practicing some relaxation and mindfulness techniques. Nutrition, we just covered this in chapter 9, but eating a balanced diet can help with stress, because if you're eating whole foods and fruits and veg and antioxidants and micronutrients and omega-3s that can keep inflammation down, that can give you good mental and physical energy, that aid in digestion, that reduce extra stress from really processed refined foods that can really disrupt the system. Caffeine, that can add, alcohol, that can add to the stress response, because we just don't understand the anxiety that that can cause. And although alcohol is a depressant, it does cause anxiety on the other end, because it disrupts all those neural networks. Social support, we talked about this. I'm not going to go into this a lot, but again, I think this is just one of the most important ways to manage stress, is just have people to vent to lean on, that trust, that you trust, the be able to kind of be vulnerable and share and be transparent, getting involved with groups, whether that's group fitness or a group on campus, a volunteer group, something to just bring more opportunities to meet people that isn't just your roommate in your classes, because that's a very limited cohort. Believe it or not, half of college students report feeling lonely. So thinking about writing down and identifying, like, what is making me feel lonely? What could I do to avoid that? Can you invite somebody from class to meet for lunch before you guys come? So grab lunch and then come to class, or coffee after class. We did the stress-free day. Maybe that opens some doors for you to have a communication outside of class, because I know you don't always get a chance to talk in class. Calling people on the phone. I think texting has taken a lot of that connection away, because we don't hear people's voices and articulation and energy levels. So maybe committing to calling people once a week instead of texting, attending events, volunteering, speaking to people, even just making eye contact in the calf or walking around campus. Hey, how are you? I see you walking by every day. We should actually introduce ourselves sometime. I do that at the gym. I see the same people all the time. I know them, but I don't ever talk to them, and just say, hey, I see you here every morning. Like, what's your name? What do you do for work? So I think I can even get better at that. Good communication skills are so key to building those relationships. I think so many of us are thinking of the next thing to say while someone else is talking, instead of really listening and engaging and giving good body language and feedback. So I think that can be super important as well. So conflict resolution. So handling conflict constructively. I think conflict can cause a lot of stress, the unknown. How are they going to respond? Why did they misinterpret what I was saying? Especially if it was a text, like, oh no, like I didn't mean that. They didn't hear my inflection in my voice. The communication channels got crossed. So just being able to clarify and really ask what the person wants. Like, what were you needing? I didn't maybe understand, and just listening and allowing them to speak before you speak, working out a plan for change. So I think conflict resolution can really be, having skills of conflict resolution can manage stress, because the more skills you have and the more confident you are when conflict arises, then conflict doesn't create as much stress. It's like, okay, I'm in this conflict, but I also have some tools and strategies when I see this person or when I call this person, that I know I'm going to be able to work through this effectively and efficiently. And we're going to come to some kind of a resolution at the end of it. Even if it's not in your favor always, at least it's gotten talked through, and at least you can kind of move on and close that, have some closure around that. And I think that's really important. So last topic, we're going to talk spiritual wellness. So spiritual wellness is often associated with just effective coping skills, higher levels of overall wellness. It's also linked to longer life expectancy. So reduced risk of disease, faster recovery, just improved emotional health. Like when we have that something bigger than ourselves, that we know that no matter what happens in this life, there's something waiting for us, and that someone else has sacrificed everything for us, and we just have to keep showing up, and we just have to keep investing and giving and believing and trusting that we're never going to be perfect. We're never going to have all the answers. We're never going to do it right every time. We're going to get in conflicts. We're going to get in uncomfortable situations. We may not deal with the situations great every time, but if you have that foundation and you have that person you can always talk to, and God is always there to talk to us, He's always there to listen, He's always there with open arms. We are never alone. When we feel lonely, we're never truly alone, because that foundation will always be there. And those opportunities to really dive into your spiritual wellness and establish that as something can take you through these struggles, can take you through these tough times, and say, this too shall pass. This too shall pass, and that you have the strength to reach out and to ask for the support you need. Give me the strength, give me the peace of mind, give me the will. What is your will in this situation? What are you trying to teach me? I want to understand. I want to learn. There's something here for me to learn. How to be resilient, how to deal with discomfort, how to deal with procrastination. Like, give me the skills and the tools to work through this. And I think that can be really empowering to know that there's somebody always there, ready and willing to listen. So hopefully that was helpful for you guys. All right, we're going to stop there. Part 2. We'll finish a little bit in class tomorrow, and then hopefully, if you guys don't have a bunch of questions on this stuff, then we can do a little hands-on relaxation, stress management in class. So, all right, guys, see you soon.